The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 a.m., just like it did every morning. Maria Vanderberg rolled out of bed in her tiny studio apartment in Queens, her body aching from yesterday's double shift. The coffee maker gurgled to life as she stared out, the small window at the city that never seemed to sleep. 3 years in New York, and she still felt like an outsider looking in. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Amsterdam. A photo of her 8-year-old daughter Sophie, grinning with a missing front tooth, holding up a drawing she made at school. The message was in Dutch. "Mama, I drew our new house in America. When can I come live with you?" Maria's heart squeezed tight. "Soon," she whispered to the empty room. Soon. The subway ride to Manhattan was the same every day. Packed cars full of people avoiding eye contact. Everyone lost in their own struggles. Maria clutched her cleaning supplies bag and thought about the stack of immigration papers on her kitchen table. The lawyer had been clear. She needed to show stable employment and income for at least another 6 months before Sophie could join her. 6 more months of video calls and bedtime stories over the phone. The Grand Metropolitan Hotel towered 47 floors into the New York sky. Maria had been cleaning there for 8 months now, and the building still made her feel small. She swiped her employee card and took the service elevator to the staff locker room in the basement. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she changed into her uniform, a simple gray dress with the hotel logo embroidered on the chest. "Morning, Maria," called out Rosa, an older woman from El Salvador who had been working at the hotel for 15 years. "You got the executive floors? Again today. Lucky you." Rosa's tone held a hint of sarcasm. The executive floors meant bigger tips but also more demanding guests. Maria nodded and grabbed her cleaning cart. The wheels squeaked as she pushed it toward the elevator. Executive floors meant luxury suites where business deals worth more money than she could imagine took place daily. She had learned to become invisible, to clean around important conversations without being noticed. It was better that way. The 38th floor was quiet when the elevator doors opened. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Central Park, but Maria barely glanced at it anymore. She had work to do. The first suite belonged to a pharmaceutical executive who left his newspapers scattered everywhere and never tipped. The second was a movie producer who was kind, but talked loudly on phone calls about budgets that made Maria's head spin. As she worked, Maria's mind wandered to her old life in Amsterdam. She had been somebody there, an operations manager at a logistics company, respected by her colleagues, making decisions that mattered. She wore business suits and attended meetings and felt proud of her work. That life felt like it belonged to someone else now. The divorce had shattered everything. Her ex-husband had connections, expensive lawyers, and a vindictive streak. When the dust settled, Maria found herself with nothing but debt and a custody arrangement that felt like punishment. Coming to America had been her only option, a chance to start over and build something better for Sophie. Her English had improved over the past 3 years, but she still struggled with complex conversations. The other hotel employees were kind enough, but most spoke Spanish among themselves. Maria found herself caught between worlds, not quite fitting in anywhere, always feeling like she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. The third suite was different. Even from the hallway, Maria could sense an energy that set it apart from the others. This was the penthouse level, where only the wealthiest guests stayed. The door was heavy oak with gold handles, and her keycard barely made a sound as it clicked open. Inside, the suite was breathtaking. The living room was larger than most New York apartments, with leather furniture that probably cost more than Maria made in a year. Original paintings hung on the walls. Not hotel art, but real pieces that belonged in museums. The dining table could seat 12 people, and the kitchen had appliances that looked like they belonged on a spaceship. But it was the view that stopped Maria in her tracks. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around 2 sides of the room, offering a panoramic view of Manhattan that took her breath away. She could see the Statue of Liberty in the distance, tiny boats moving across the harbor like toys. For a moment, she forgot about her cleaning supplies and just stared. The guest staying here was James Crawford, according to the name on her assignment sheet. She had heard other employees whisper about him. some kind of tech billionaire who owned companies she had never heard of. He was younger than she expected, maybe in his early 40s, with the kind of casual confidence that came from never having to worry about money. Maria had seen him in passing a few times. He was polite but distant, the way wealthy people often were with service staff. Not rude, just existing in a completely different universe. He tipped well, which she appreciated, but never made small talk or seemed to notice her as anything more than part of the hotel furniture. This morning, she could hear him on a phone call in the bedroom, his voice carrying the stress that seemed to follow powerful men everywhere. Something about manufacturing delays and partnership agreements. Maria didn't understand most of it, but she could tell he was frustrated. His voice had the tight edge of someone dealing with problems that ordinary people couldn't even comprehend. She began her routine, starting with the living room. Dusting the expensive furniture, vacuuming the Persian rugs, cleaning windows that offered views most people would never see. The work was familiar now, almost meditative. Her hands moved automatically while her mind drifted to Sophie's latest school project, the immigration paperwork she needed to complete, the second job she worked 3 evenings a week at a diner in Queens. Sometimes Maria wondered what her business professors in Amsterdam would think if they could see her now. She had graduated with honors, had been considered a rising star at her company. Now she cleaned toilets and made beds for people who earned more in a day than she made in a year. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she had learned not to dwell on it. This was temporary. Everything was temporary until Sophie could join her. From the bedroom, Crawford's voice grew louder, more agitated, something about Dutch manufacturing partners and missed deadlines. Maria caught fragments of the conversation, words like merger and $1 billion and complete disaster. She worked more quietly, not wanting to disturb him, but curious, despite herself about problems so far removed from her own daily struggles. The suite felt different today, charged with an energy that made Maria slightly uncomfortable. Important things were happening here, decisions that would affect thousands of people, and she was just the cleaning lady trying to stay invisible, while the powerful man in the next room fought battles she couldn't understand. Little did Maria know that in just a few minutes her entire life would change forever. The phone would ring, she would answer it, and nothing would ever be the same again. Maria was carefully dusting the crystal chandelier when she heard Crawford's voice getting more frustrated in the next room. She tried not to listen, but the EY walls weren't that thick, and he wasn't exactly whispering anymore. "What do you mean you can't reach him?" Crawford was saying into his phone. "This is a $500 million deal, Peterson. You don't just lose contact with your business partner 3 days before signing." Maria winced. Even she knew that sounded like a huge problem. She moved her cleaning cloth more gently, trying not to make any noise. Rich people's problems were way above her pay grade, but she couldn't help feeling a little sorry for him. Stress was stress, whether you were worried about paying rent or losing millions of dollars. Crawford's assistant, a sharp-dressed woman named Peterson, who always looked like she lived on coffee and anxiety, had arrived an hour earlier with a stack of folders. Through the open bedroom door, Maria could see Crawford pacing back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand running through his hair. "I don't care if it's 3 a.m. in Amsterdam," Crawford was saying. "Keep calling Henrik. Try his home number, his cell phone, his office, his secretary. Try everyone who's ever met the man. This merger depends on his signature, and we have exactly 72 hours to make it happen." Maria froze. Amsterdam, Henrik, her homeland, and a Dutch name. She found herself listening more carefully, even though she knew she shouldn't. It wasn't her business, but hearing familiar names made her homesick heart pay attention. She moved to the living room windows, spraying glass cleaner and wiping in careful circles. From here, she could see both Crawford in the bedroom and the city stretching out below. 38 floors up, the people on the street looked like ants. Sometimes she felt just as small and insignificant. "No, Peterson, I can't just fly to Amsterdam myself," Crawford continued, his voice carrying that edge of panic that came when powerful people realized they weren't as in control as they thought. "The board meeting is tomorrow morning. If I'm not here to present this merger, 3 years of work go down the drain. Not to mention the environmental impact. This green energy project could change everything. Green energy. That caught Maria's attention too. Back in Amsterdam, she had worked with several companies that were trying to switch to cleaner power sources. It was one of the things she had been proud of in her old job, helping businesses reduce their environmental impact while saving money. She understood more about this stuff than most people realized. But she was just the cleaning lady now. Her opinions about green energy didn't matter to anyone anymore. Crawford appeared in the doorway, still on the phone, pacing into the living room. Maria quickly looked down at her cleaning supplies, trying to become invisible again. Rich people didn't like to be reminded that the help could hear their private conversations. "Look, I'm going to try calling Henrik myself one more time," Crawford said. "Maybe if he hears my voice directly." "No, I don't speak Dutch. That's what translators are for." He hung up and immediately dialed another number. The phone rang and rang and rang. Maria counted 12 rings before it went to voicemail. Crawford left a message in English, speaking slowly and clearly, asking Henrik to call back immediately about the merger. But Maria could tell from his body language that he didn't expect it to work. He tried again. Same result. Then again. After the fourth attempt, he threw his phone onto the leather couch and rubbed his face with both hands. "This is insane," he muttered to himself. 3 years of negotiations, and it's all falling apart because one guy won't answer his phone. Maria felt bad for him. She had been in situations where everything depended on reaching one person who seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth. During her divorce, her lawyer had disappeared for 2 weeks right before a crucial court date. The helpless feeling was terrible, even when the stakes weren't nearly as high as Crawford's. She finished the windows and moved to vacuum the rugs. The expensive vacuum cleaner was almost silent, but Crawford still glanced up at her with the distracted look of someone whose mind was completely somewhere else. She gave him a small nod and went back to work. That's when the phone in the office started ringing. It wasn't Crawford's cell phone. It was the hotel landline in the small office area near the dining room. The ring was loud and sharp, cutting through the quiet tension of the suite like a knife. Crawford looked up from his laptop where he had been typing frantically. The phone kept ringing. 5 rings, 10 rings, 15. "Peterson," Crawford called toward the bedroom. "Can you get that?" "She went downstairs to make copies," came Peterson's voice from somewhere in the suite. "I think she took her key." The phone kept ringing. Maria glanced over at Crawford, who was staring at his laptop screen like it held the secrets of the universe. 20 rings now. 25. Whoever was calling really wanted to talk to someone. Crawford stood up and started walking toward the office, but his own cell phone rang at that exact moment. He stopped, torn between the 2 phones, then answered. His cell. "Crawford here. What?" "No, I told you we can't move the board meeting. The investors are flying in from London specifically for..." His voice trailed off as he walked back toward the bedroom, dealing with yet another crisis. The office phone was still ringing. 30 rings now, maybe 40. Maria had never heard anything like it. In her experience, people gave up after 5 or 6 rings. This person was desperate. She looked toward the bedroom where Crawford was having an intense conversation about board meetings and investor presentations. She looked back at the ringing phone. Something told her this call was important. Really important. Maria made a decision that would change her life forever. She walked over to the office phone and picked it up. "Hello?" she said automatically in Dutch, her native language coming out before she even thought about it. "Oh, dankjewel." The relief in the caller's voice was immediate and overwhelming. "Finally, I've been trying to call for 2 hours. Is this James Crawford's suite?" The man was speaking rapid Dutch, his words tumbling over each other in his rush to get them out. Maria's heart started beating faster. This was definitely about Crawford's business. Yes, this is his suite," she replied in Dutch, glancing toward the bedroom where Crawford was still on his own call. "But I'm just..." "Thank God," the caller interrupted. "This is Henrik Janssen from Green Future Manufacturing in Amsterdam. I've been trying to reach Mr. Crawford for 3 days, but something is wrong with his phone system. Every time I call his direct number, it goes to some kind of automated message in English that I can't understand." Maria's eyes went wide. This was Henrik, the missing business partner, the man Crawford had been desperately trying to reach. "Listen," Henrik continued in Dutch. "I need to speak with Mr. Crawford immediately. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. My father had a heart attack on Monday, and I've been at the hospital ever since. I thought my assistant was handling all my calls, but apparently she's been forwarding everything to my personal line, which I haven't checked, because I've been focused on my family." Maria's mind was racing. She understood every word, but she could hardly believe what she was hearing. The missing businessman wasn't missing at all. There had just been a communication breakdown. "I'm ready to sign the merger papers," Henrik continued. "In fact, I'm excited about this green energy project. It's exactly the kind of work I want to be doing. But I need to talk to Mr. Crawford right now to coordinate everything. The lawyers have been calling me too, but again, everything is in English and it's all going to my personal voicemail, which I haven't had time to check." Maria looked toward the bedroom again. Crawford was still on his crisis call, pacing and gesturing, completely unaware that the solution to his biggest problem was on the other end of the phone she was holding. She took a deep breath and made another life-changing decision. "Mr. Jansen," she said in Dutch, "please hold on one moment. I'm going to get Mr. Crawford for you right now." Maria's heart was pounding as she held the phone. Henrik was still talking rapidly in Dutch on the other end, explaining about his father's condition and how sorry he was for the confusion. She could hear Crawford in the bedroom, his voice getting more stressed by the minute as he dealt with another business crisis. "Mr. Jansen, please give me just 30 seconds, Maria said in Dutch, putting her hand over the phone. She had never done anything like this before in her life. What was she thinking? She was just the cleaning lady. But something deep inside told her this was too important to mess up. She walked quickly toward the bedroom, her cleaning supplies forgotten. Crawford was standing by the window, his back to her, still talking on his cell phone about investor meetings and board presentations. "Excuse me, Mr. Crawford," she said quietly. He didn't turn around, he was too focused on his call. "Mr. Crawford," she said a little louder, her Dutch accent making his name sound different than usual. This time he turned, looking surprised to see her standing there. His eyebrows went up in a question, and he held up one finger to indicate he'd be with her in a moment. "Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt," Maria said, her English careful but clear. "But Henrik Jansen is on the office phone. From Amsterdam. He says he's been trying to reach you for 3 days." Crawford's entire body went still. For a moment, he just stared at her like she had spoken in a foreign language, which, technically, she had been doing just moments before. "What did you say?" he asked, lowering his own phone. "Henrik Jansen, from Green Future Manufacturing in Amsterdam. He's on the office phone right now. He wants to talk to you about the merger." Crawford's face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, hope, and then something that looked almost like relief mixed with panic. "Hold on," he said into his cell phone. "Something just came up, I'll call you back." He hung up and looked at Maria with the kind of intensity that made her want to step backward. "You spoke to Henrik? In Dutch?" "Yes, sir. He's been at the hospital with his sick father. There was some kind of mix-up with his phone calls. He's ready to sign the merger papers." Crawford stared at her for another long moment, then practically ran toward the office. Maria followed, still not quite believing what was happening. Was she really in the middle of a $500 million business deal? Yesterday, her biggest worry was whether she had enough quarters for the laundry machine. Crawford grabbed the office phone. "Henrik, this is James Crawford. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days." Maria could hear Henrik's voice through the phone, speaking English now, but with a heavy Dutch accent that made some words hard to understand. Crawford was nodding and smiling for the first time since she had arrived that morning. "I'm so sorry about your father," Crawford was saying. "Is he going to be okay?" No, don't apologize. Family comes first, always. I completely understand." While Crawford talked, Maria started to back away toward her cleaning cart. She had done her good deed for the day. Now she should get back to work and pretend this had never happened. Rich people didn't need cleaning ladies interfering in their business deals. But Crawford caught her eye and motioned for her to stay. She stopped, confused, standing awkwardly by the dining table while one of the most powerful men in America conducted a business call worth more money than she could even imagine. Yes, the environmental impact studies look fantastic, Crawford was saying. This could revolutionize how we think about sustainable energy in manufacturing. Your process could reduce carbon emissions by 60% while actually saving money. It's exactly what the world needs right now. Maria found herself listening despite trying not to. She had worked with green energy initiatives in her old job. She understood more about this stuff than Crawford probably realized. The technology Henrik's company was developing sounded similar to projects she had helped coordinate back in Amsterdam. The call went on for 20 minutes. Crawford took notes, asked technical questions, and slowly relaxed as all the details got worked out. The merger was back on track. The lawyers would handle the final paperwork. The board meeting tomorrow would be a celebration instead of a funeral. When Crawford finally hung up, he just stood there for a moment, staring at the phone like he couldn't believe what had just happened. Then he turned to Maria. "You just saved my company," he said quietly. Maria felt heat rush to her cheeks. "I just answered the phone, sir. Anyone would have done the same thing." "No." Crawford shook his head. "Anyone would have let it ring or answered in English and hung up when they realized the caller didn't speak the language well. You took the time to listen, to understand, and to help. That's not something anyone would do." He was looking at her differently now. Not like she was invisible furniture, but like he was really seeing her for the first time. "You speak Dutch fluently," he said. "It wasn't a question. It's my native language, sir. I'm from Amsterdam originally. And your English is excellent too. Better than some of my employees who were born here." Maria wasn't sure what to say to that. She twisted her cleaning cloth in her hands, feeling out of place in her gray uniform while discussing international business deals. "What's your background?" Crawford asked. "Before you worked here, I mean." This was the question Maria always dreaded. How do you explain to someone that you used to be somebody important, but now you clean their toilet? How do you make them understand without sounding like you're complaining or looking for sympathy? "I worked in operations management back in Amsterdam," she said carefully. "For a logistics company. We helped businesses optimize their supply chains and reduce waste." Crawford's eyebrows went up. "Operations management. That's not an entry-level job. You must have had significant experience." "I have a business degree from the University of Amsterdam," Maria said, then immediately felt stupid for mentioning it. What good did her degree do her now? "So you understand supply chain logistics, environmental sustainability, and international business operations," Crawford said slowly, like he was putting together pieces of a puzzle. "I used to, yes, sir. But that was a long time ago. Now I just clean hotels." Something in Crawford's expression shifted. He was quiet for a long moment, and Maria could practically see the wheels turning in his head. She had seen that look before, back when she worked in offices instead of cleaning them. It was the look of someone having an idea. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why what, sir? Why are you cleaning hotels instead of running operations for some company? You clearly have the education and experience for much more than this." Maria felt her throat tighten. This was exactly the conversation she didn't want to have. But something about the way Crawford was looking at her, not with pity, but with genuine curiosity, made her want to tell the truth. "Life happened," she said simply. "Sometimes things fall apart and you have to start over. This job pays the bills while I figure out what comes next." Crawford nodded like he understood more than she expected. "I started as a janitor," he said quietly. Maria blinked. "Sir?" 22 years ago. I was cleaning office buildings in Silicon Valley, working nights so I could take computer programming classes during the day. Everyone told me I was crazy, to think I could build a tech company from nothing. But sometimes the best opportunities come to people who are willing to work their way up from the bottom. He was still looking at her with that intense focus like he was trying to solve a complicated equation. "Maria," he said, and she realized with surprise that he knew her name. "Can we talk?" Maria's mind went blank. When billionaires said they wanted to talk, it usually meant one of two things. Either you were in trouble or something very strange was about to happen. She couldn't figure out which one this was. "Of course, Mr. Crawford," she said, setting down her cleaning supplies. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she hoped he didn't notice. Crawford gestured toward the leather chairs in the living room. Maria had cleaned those chairs dozens of times, but she had never sat in one. The leather was softer than she expected, and she found herself sinking into it more than she meant to. Everything in this suite was designed for comfort and luxury, things she had almost forgotten existed. Crawford sat across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Maria could see helicopters flying between the skyscrapers, carrying people to meetings that would probably change the world in small ways. She wondered if this was one of those moments. "Tell me about your daughter," Crawford said, which was the last thing Maria expected to hear. She blinked. "My daughter? You mentioned you're from Amsterdam originally, but you're here in New York working 2 jobs from what I can tell, sending money home. That usually means family. Kids." Maria wasn't sure how he knew about her second job, but rich. People probably knew things about their employees that surprised normal people. "Sophie," she said softly. "She's 8. She lives with my sister in Amsterdam while I try to get the immigration paperwork sorted out. It's complicated." "Immigration always is," Crawford said. "My grandfather came here from Ireland with nothing but a suitcase and a lot of hope. Took him 7 years to bring his family over. 7 years of working in factories and sleeping in boarding houses, saving every penny." Maria looked at him with new eyes. She had assumed he was born into wealth, like most of the hotel's guests. The idea that his family had struggled too made him seem more human somehow. "The thing is," Crawford continued, "I learned something about talent today. Real talent is usually hidden in places where people don't think to look for it. Most companies hire the same types of people from the same schools with the same backgrounds. They miss incredible potential because they're not paying attention." Maria had no idea where this conversation was going, but she found herself hanging on every word. "You solved a problem today that my entire team couldn't solve," Crawford said. "Not because you're smarter than they are, but because you had something they didn't have. Language skills, cultural understanding, and most importantly, the willingness to take initiative when it mattered." "I just answered a phone, sir." "No." Crawford shook his head firmly. "You made a judgment call. You listened carefully to what Henrik was saying. You understood that it was important. And you found a way to connect us even though it wasn't your job to do that. That's exactly the kind of thinking I need in my European operations." "European operations?" Maria's heart started beating faster. Was he going where she thought he was going with this? Crawford stood up and walked to the windows, looking out at the city spread below them. "This merger with Henrik's company is just the beginning," he said. "Green energy manufacturing is about to explode across Europe. Countries are passing laws requiring companies to reduce their carbon footprints. Businesses are looking for sustainable solutions that actually save them money instead of costing them more." He turned back to Maria. "I need someone who understands both the business side and the cultural side. Someone who can talk to Dutch manufacturers in their own language, understand German efficiency standards, navigate French bureaucracy, and coordinate with Italian design teams. Someone who knows how European businesses actually work, not just how American companies think they work." Maria felt like she was in a dream. This couldn't be real. People like her didn't get opportunities like this. There had to be a catch. "Mr. Crawford," she said carefully, "I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm not sure I understand what you're asking." Crawford sat back down, this time on the edge of his chair, his eyes bright with the kind of excitement that successful people got when they had a new idea. "I want to offer you a job," he said. "Director of European Operations. You'd be based here in New York initially, working with our international team to coordinate the expansion into European markets. Eventually, you'd spend about half your time traveling to Amsterdam, Berlin, Paris, Rome, working directly with our partners over there." Maria's mouth fell open. She literally could not speak. The salary would be $140,000 a year, plus performance bonuses, plus travel expenses, plus full health insurance, Crawford continued. We'd also provide relocation assistance if you want to move to a better apartment. And most importantly, we'd help fast-track your daughter's immigration process. I have lawyers who specialize in family reunification cases. The numbers were swirling in Maria's head. $140,000. She currently made $28,000 a year at the hotel, plus maybe another $12,000 from her evening job at the diner. This was more money than she had ever imagined making in America, but it was the part about Sophie that made her eyes fill with tears. You would help bring my daughter here? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Maria, Crawford said gently. Talent like yours is rare, but talent without opportunity is just wasted potential. I've built my entire company on the principle that if you find the right people and give them the right opportunities, they'll do things that amaze everyone, including themselves. Maria was crying now, but trying to hide it. This was too much. Too good to be true. There had to be something wrong with it. Why? She asked. Why me? You could hire someone with an MBA from Harvard, someone with years of experience in international business, someone who actually belongs in this world. Crawford smiled, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked completely relaxed. You know what the difference is between someone with an MBA and someone with real-world experience? He asked. The MBA knows the theory. You know how things actually work. You've been in the trenches. You've had to solve problems with limited resources. You've had to work twice as hard to get half as far, which means you appreciate opportunities. When they come, he leaned back in his chair. Plus, you saved my $500 million deal by doing something that any of my highly paid executives could have done but didn't. You took initiative. You saw a problem and you fixed it. That's worth more than any degree. Maria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to pull herself together. This is crazy, she said. Yesterday, I was worried about whether I could afford groceries this week. Now you're talking about six-figure salaries and bringing my daughter to America. It doesn't feel real. I know, Crawford said. Trust me, I know exactly how that feels. When I got my first big break, I spent 3 days convinced it was some kind of mistake or joke. But sometimes life changes fast. Sometimes years of struggle lead to one moment that changes everything. He stood up and walked to his briefcase, pulling out a business card. I'm not asking you to decide right now, he said, handing her the card. This is too big a decision to make on the spot. Take the weekend, think about it, talk to your family. Call me Monday morning and let me know what you decide. Maria took the card with trembling fingers. It was heavy, expensive paper with raised, gold lettering. James Crawford, Chief Executive Officer. There was a phone number and an email address. Proof that this conversation had actually happened. One more thing, Crawford said as Maria stood up to leave. Whatever you decide, what happened here today stays between us for now. If you decide to take the job, we'll announce it properly. If you decide not to, no one needs to know we had this conversation. Either way, your current job here is safe. I'm not trying to pressure you. Maria nodded, clutching the business card, like it was made of gold. Mr. Crawford, she said, thank you for seeing me, for believing I could do something like this. Even if I can't, even if this doesn't work out. Thank you for giving me hope. Crawford smiled. Maria, I have a feeling you're going to surprise a lot of people, starting with yourself. The weekend felt like the longest 3 days of Maria's life. She had called in sick to her evening job at the diner on Friday, something she had never done before because she couldn't concentrate on anything except Crawford's offer. She sat in her tiny apartment staring at his business card, wondering if she had imagined the whole thing. On Friday night, she video-called Sophie. Her daughter's face filled the phone screen, gap-toothed smile bright as always, but Maria could see the tiredness around her eyes. 8-year-olds shouldn't look tired like that. Mama, when are you coming home? Sophie asked in Dutch. It was the same question she asked every week, and every week it broke Maria's heart a little more. Actually, sweetheart, Maria said carefully. I might have some good news soon, but I can't tell you about it yet. It's still a secret. Sophie's eyes got wide. She loved secrets, especially good ones. Is it about me coming to America? Maria's throat tightened. Maybe, but don't get too excited yet, okay? Sometimes grown-up things take time to work out. After they hung up, Maria called her sister Nina, who had been taking care of Sophie since Maria left Amsterdam. Nina was 5 years older and had always been the practical one in the family. A billionaire offered you a job? Nina said in Dutch, her voice full of disbelief. Maria, are you sure this isn't some kind of scam? Rich men don't just give hotel cleaning ladies executive positions. I know it sounds crazy, Maria said. But Nina, he saved my business card. He knew my name. He talked about bringing Sophie, here legally, with proper paperwork and everything. What if it's too good to be true? Nina asked. What if you take this job and something goes wrong? At least now you have steady work, even if it's not much money. That was Nina, always looking for the problems, always expecting the worst. It had kept their family safe during hard times, but sometimes Maria wondered if her sister had forgotten how to hope for good things. What if it's not too good to be true? Maria asked back. What if this is the chance I've been working toward? For 3 years? They talked for 2 hours going in circles. Nina was worried, Maria was scared but excited. Neither of them had answers. On Saturday, Maria did something she hadn't done in months. She went for a walk in Central Park. Not because she had time or money to waste, but because she needed to think somewhere that wasn't her cramped apartment. The park was full of families having picnics, kids playing on playgrounds, couples holding hands. Normal people living normal lives. Maria tried to imagine herself in business clothes again, carrying a briefcase, making decisions that mattered. It felt like trying to remember a dream from years ago. She found a bench near the lake and pulled out Crawford's business card for the 100th time. The gold lettering caught the sunlight. She thought about Sophie, about the immigration lawyer who had told her it could take 2 more years to bring her daughter to America. 2 more years of video calls and missed bedtime stories and watching her little girl grow up through a phone screen. Then she thought about her old boss in Amsterdam who had treated her like she was invisible, even when she was solving his biggest problems. She thought about the hotel guests who never learned her name, who left messes because they knew someone else would clean them up. She thought about counting quarters for the laundry machine and buying generic cereal because the name brand stuff was too expensive. But mostly, she thought about the look in Crawford's eyes when he talked about hidden talent and wasted potential. He had seen something in her that she had almost forgotten was there. On Sunday morning, Maria called her mother in Amsterdam. Her mom was 73 and had cleaned houses her whole life. She understood hard work and sacrifice better than anyone. Mama, Maria said in Dutch, what would you do if someone offered you a chance to change your whole life but you weren't sure you were good enough to deserve it? Her mother was quiet for a long time. You know, she said finally, when your father asked me to marry him, I almost said no. I thought I wasn't pretty enough, smart enough, good enough for a man like him. My own mother had to shake some sense into me. What did she tell you? She said that life doesn't offer second chances very often. And when it does, you don't insult the gift by saying you're not worthy of it. You say thank you and you work twice as hard to prove that life made the right choice. Maria felt tears coming again. Her grandmother had been gone for 10 years, but her wisdom was still there when Maria needed it most. Monday morning came too fast and not fast enough. Maria got to work early, before her shift started, and sat in the hotel lobby with Crawford's business card in her hand. The lobby was full of important-looking people rushing to important meetings, talking on phones about deals and deadlines and decisions that would affect thousands of people. She could be one of them. In a few months, she could be the woman in the business suit, talking about manufacturing partnerships and environmental impact and international expansion. Or she could keep cleaning hotel rooms and serving coffee at the diner, safe but slowly, disappearing. At exactly 9 a.m., Maria dialed Crawford's number. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone twice. Crawford speaking. Mr. Crawford, this is Maria, from the hotel. Maria. His voice immediately warmed. I was hoping you'd call. Have you made your decision? Maria took a deep breath. Yes, sir, I accept your offer. There was a pause, then Crawford laughed. Not at her, but with pure joy. That's fantastic news. I was hoping you'd say yes, but I wasn't sure. This is going to be amazing. I'm scared, Maria admitted. I'm terrified that I'm not qualified enough, that I'll mess up something important, that you'll realize you made a mistake. Maria, Crawford said gently, I've been in business for 20 years. I've hired hundreds of people. Some had perfect resumes and failed completely. Others came from nowhere and changed everything. You know what the difference was? The ones who succeeded were the ones who cared enough to be scared. Fear means you understand how important this is. 3 hours later, Maria was sitting in Crawford's corporate office, 40 floors above Manhattan, signing papers that would change her life forever. The salary was real. The benefits were real. The legal help for Sophie's immigration case was real. 6 months later, Maria was on a plane to Amsterdam, carrying contracts for 3 new manufacturing partnerships. She was wearing a business suit that actually fit, carrying a briefcase full of environmental impact studies, and most importantly, bringing her daughter home with her to New York.